everyone. Happy February. Just happy everything. I hope I'm greeting everyone doing well, doing all of the good things. Travel has picked up and we are all on a upward trajectory different from the last 2 years. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, First of all, thank you for tuning in today. We do have, you know, sorry about missing the last one. Stuff happens, human. It's okay. Let me know that you guys are hearing me okay. I got a brand new microphone courtesy of ECamm and it's in my brand colors. So I'm lifting it up. You see the green and the gold. Ah, love it. So thank you, ECamm. They are the whatchamacallit, the software I use to bring this YouTube stream to you. It allows me to do different things and make it sort of like a production. So I'm very thankful for their gift. So gotta shout it out. Hopefully I sound better. If you don't hear me, let me know, and then I will do what I can to adjust. All right, so today we're going to talk about chargebacks and demystifying chargebacks. I know in the travel agent community, this is a huge thing, especially dealing with COVID and all of the things that we had to go through regarding refunding people, here, making sure they got their refunds in time, you know, things of that nature. And some people just not being patient for whatever reason and having chargebacks and charging back um, their their fees, or not liking the resolution and then doing a chargeback with their credit card company. So that's what we're going to discuss today. For those who don't know, my name is Glenisa Gaylord. I am an attorney and a travel agent just like you, and I um, came up with Travel Esquire'd to help travel agents manage their business legally. So that's what they're here for. If you have any questions, please make sure. I will. There's a lot to cover today. Usually I do questions during the stream, but because there's just so much to go into, I want to get through everything and come back to your questions. So the best way for me to know whether or not you've asked a question is for you to put the letter Q in front of your question. Because if you don't do that, then it's just a comment, and that way I don't, excuse me, and that's very hard for me to whatchamacallit, that's very hard for me to pull it out from the chat. So also, if you like what you hear today, please make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, so that sort of helps with the algorithm, and join the Travel Esquire mailing list. There you'll get some the TE Tidbits newsletter, and with that newsletter, you'll get information that not everyone gets. So please make sure that you subscribe. So, on to our topic. First thing I want to go into is what is a chargeback? So, the Fair Credit Billing Act, that's the law that allows for chargebacks. Okay, so it allows credit card holders to say, as long as it covers one of the reasons, which we'll go to in a minute, to say to their credit card company that this charge is not authorized, it's fraudulent, so on and so forth, and therefore you need to give me back my money. You can't make me responsible for this. So a lot of people run their different businesses differently. How does this affect your business? So it all depends. It depends on whether or not you are direct sales. Like, for instance, there's some travel advisors who run their own groups and they put the suppliers together, but they are in charge of the monies, and then they dole out the monies to the suppliers, depending, based upon the contractual agreements. There are others that take credit cards and then utilize their clients' credit cards to pay for the vacation through a tour operator or other means. So that means that you really need to know what the terms and conditions are of that tour operator that you're using and how they handle chargebacks from our clients. So it all depends. Um, Reasons for a chargeback. So there's like 5 reasons by law that you can get that allow someone to request a chargeback. Either it's unauthorized charges, which is fraud, unprocessed credits. We've dealt with that, right? Um, Change you're charging for products and services they didn't receive. So, when you get your Amazon box and somebody takes the box off your stoop, that is a reason for a chargeback. You didn't receive it. Or, and this has happened in the travel industry, where a certain trip is advertised and the people don't receive what was advertised on that trip. So then a chargeback is definitely valid in that case. Incorrect billing information, such as the date or the amount. Sometimes you get double charged for something. And, sometimes the vendor doesn't do what they're supposed to do. So that's definitely a basis for a chargeback. Or if the bill is sent to an old address and there's some billing on there. That's fairly rare in this time because a lot of us are getting our bills electronically. So that's really not a huge issue. So, so those are basically the reasons for a chargeback and why someone would be able to do a chargeback legally. So let's go into that a little bit more. Let's talk about how you can prevent a chargeback. There's several ways for you to prevent a chargeback. I've outlined 7 here because it's all about your systems. I will be very, very clear with you. And I spoke about this in my terms and conditions, going through the terms and conditions. It's all about your systems, making sure you have the right systems set up, making sure it's PCI compliant, where you hold cards, where you can take electronic signatures, where it has, it may not have everything that you need, but at least a good percentage of what you need in order to protect you and keep all of the information in one place so you can easily go back to it and pull it if you need to. So one of the ways to prevent having a chargeback, and I talk with my hands, so we're just going to have to deal with it. That's me. But one of the ways to prevent a chargeback is to make sure you validate the client. Who are you speaking to? For me, all of my consultations are done via Zoom or Google Meet. Why? Because I'm able to see you and you're able to see me. I know who I'm talking to, right? I'm able to see who I'm talking to, and we can have a conversation similar to how we're having here now. That's one way to validate. If you can, and if you want to, get permission to record. I know some travel agents record their consultations, whether it be because they want to go back to it. That way they're not taking notes and they're more fully engaged with the client conversation. But the secondary reason is protect yourself, because you don't want that person to come back and say, hey, I never authorized this charge. Ma'am, sir, we had a whole conversation. Here's a copy of it, if you're dealing with affinity groups like birthday groups, group is already family reunions, group is already formed, get a preliminary list of the people who will be going on that group vacation. That way you have an understanding of who your audience is. And some people I know won't book a vacation until there's some type of photo ID uploaded into their system, whether it be their passport or government issued ID, such as a driver's license. They won't move forward, and that's okay too. But those are different ways in which you can validate. You can validate your someone's identity. Another way to prevent chargebacks is have the card holder authorize a transaction, right? Make sure that the person who's doing the transaction is the person who owns the card. Because it's very easy for someone, they can let their sister say, okay, I'll pay for it for you, just give me cash. People do that all the time. I do that within my group of friends. But it's very easy for someone to say, well, this isn't me. I didn't allow this charge to go through, so on and so forth. And then there's your chargeback. You know, you don't want to go through that. So make sure you have the right disclaimers. Make sure that they say, you are authorized to use this card and you'll be responsible for any charges made to this card. If the card holder is not the traveler and is not within that group of traveling, get a notarized letter before you charge that card that they are giving permission for so and so traveler to charge that card. Because if you don't, that can come back and bite you in the butt. It's an extra step, but you're able to have that coverage for you if they want to use somebody else's card. You may say, as a business practice, no, the card that you charge with, it's a card that belongs to you. It has your name on it, and I'm not charging any other cards. And that's totally fine. That's how you run your business. That's fine. But if you're going to allow someone to use somebody else's card, get a notarized letter saying that it's okay. Make sure that the card holder agrees to your terms and conditions prior to finalizing the transaction. So again, in my terms and conditions series, one of the things I say is present, present, present. Make sure you use every opportunity to present your terms and conditions to that to your client. Why? Because you want to make sure that they understand what your policies are, and they understand what what they need to do and what their rights and responsibilities are. So you don't, if they don't read it, that's on them. But you've done your job to make sure it's in front of them as many times as possible. Add it to your email signature, put it on every invoice, put it in your proposals. Everywhere that you have a touch point with your client, your terms and conditions link should be there. Again, make sure your disclaimers are tight. Make sure that it's very clear what it is that they are agreeing to. Be as transparent as possible and follow your processes. You put them in place for a reason. They're there to protect you. Make sure you follow them. It's very important. Every time, and I know for me, every time my process, and I don't follow my process and procedure, at the end, I'm biting myself in the butt because somebody did something, and I'm like, see, if I followed my process procedure, it would have avoided all of this. So never take credit cards over the phone. Make sure you get your signature, and never complete registrations on behalf of your clients. Make sure they're the ones signing the paperwork. Generally with your CRM, I have TravelJoy. Some people use Vacation CRM. And there's Tests and some other ones out there. Make sure when somebody does an electronic signature that it tracks the IP address of the computer in which they're utilizing, because that's another way to prove up your case in case you get a chargeback. Okay? Document everything. What I like about TravelJoy is that not only does I can do emails to my client and communicate with them that way, it shows if they open the email, if it's been delivered, So I've had clients who come to me and say, well, I never got that email. And it was a very important email regarding cancellation. Not only did you get it, ma'am, but you also read it. And this is the time that you opened it. You got the email. So when you come with that type of evidence and it's irrefutable, then you can go ahead. That gives you a stronger position, and it makes you more confident when you have to uphold your policies. Now, I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any questions there. So please ask your questions as we go along. Like I said, if you put the Q in front of it, I will get back to it. I will come back. But let's get some questions. I know you guys have questions about chargebacks. Don't be silent now. Another thing, a way to help prevent chargebacks is verify and confirm. It is very important that you verify. We talk to our clients all the time. We talk to them via phone. We talk to them via text. We talk to them in all different types of ways. We talk to them all the time in different ways. When you are done, if it's not an email already, you need to go back to that email in that CRM and say, hey, so-and-so, it's great talking to you today. We had a great conversation. I just want to recap what it is that we talked about and say you agreed to this, that, and that. You upgraded your room to this, that, and that, and you understood that there's an extra charge to that room, and this is what it is. And, I'm going to move forward unless you say otherwise. I'm going to move forward with your request. Or you can say, if this is how you remember it, please confirm. Once I hear back from you, then I'll move forward. Totally up to you how you wish to do it, but you have it in writing. You have them agreeing to it. You have them agreeing to it, and you have them whatchamacallit. And you have a way of protecting yourself, because now they can't say, oh, well, I remember a conversation, but that's not what I agreed to. So you want to make sure that you back yourself up and have that backup detail. Cancellation policy is very important. Make it up front. Yes, you may have it in your terms and conditions, but each vacation may have a different cancellation policy. Put it up front, put it in a proposal, put it in the terms and conditions part, put it in your disclaimers for that trip. Make it known so your clients can't say, I didn't know what the cancellation policy was. Now you have written documentation showing what that cancellation policy is and that they agreed to it. What I like about TravelJoy, whenever someone does pays on their invoice, they pay like it's the original invoice. So they have to do the disclaimer. They have to e-sign. And because of that, I appreciate that. And they do it for each and every payment. So that's amazing. Keep everything. This is why it's important to use a CRM, because you can put everything in that CRM and attach it to that client's file. So if you ever need to go back and pull, you can. Take notes of your calls with your client, and that includes your date and the time that they called, because what's good evidence is contemporaneous notes, right? So make sure if somebody calls you and you have a conversation, that you go into the notes and you take those notes. Don't wait till later. Do it immediately. And that way it's fresh. You have down what you need to do. You have down what was discussed. And that will help you also moving forward if you have a chargeback. And make sure you get electronic signatures on every transaction. That is vital, because, some people have the click boxes, all of that other good stuff, but the signature is the platinum standard. You definitely want to do that. Good. I see some questions, so I'm going to hold those to the side, and we will go through it at the end. So now there's also ways in order to do some deterrence on chargebacks, right? So you can do this as you build through your own systems and processes. First is identify places of friction. So we all know as travel agents and travel advisors that cancellation is always a place of friction. And travel insurance, especially cancellations of people without travel insurance, is always a place of friction, because everybody expects to get their money back if they can't travel. Even though you can say 50 million times the deposit's non-refundable, after this date is non-refundable, it doesn't matter. Identify that as places of friction and make sure you are very, very clear. You are very, very clear as to what the policy is. It's upfront, transparent, in their face. Because, again, we've all heard, I didn't see that. I didn't read that. I didn't get that. You didn't provide that information to me. We've all heard that, right? So make sure you combat against that. Another thing, and I've said this a couple of times, to be transparent with your policies. It's very hard to tell someone no. You don't want to do it, right? But if you're upfront and transparent from the beginning and you repeat, then you can sit in that no and be confident, right? And if somebody wants to challenge you, because they will, you can say, hey, I told you this on this date. Here's a copy. I said this on this date. Here's a copy. And you sign saying that you agree to these policies. Here's a copy. Sort of takes the wind out of their sails and makes it stronger for you. It makes a stronger case. Also, keep an open door policy for every questions and explain. I will be honest, I was in some of the travel agent groups this week and I was appalled at some of the ways that travel agents treated their customers. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to say this to try and talk down, but one travel agent was mad because someone was asking very valid questions about their travel and thought that they were a pain in the butt. And I'm like, no, you want your client asking questions. Why? Because then, you can't go, you try to go into everything and you may not be able to because you forget. This is what you do. You have your spiel, you go through your spiel all the time and you forget stuff. I do it all the time as an attorney, and if they're asking questions, it helps you fill in those gaps that you may not even have thought of. It can also help you develop a FAQ if those questions are coming up more and more often, right? So it can help you hone in on your business practices. But they're spending money with you. They're spending thousands of dollars with you. And if they want to be secure in their purchase, they're going to ask questions. And that's okay. Because if you have nothing to hide, you have no issues with asking those questions, answering those questions. Take the time, answer them. I know we have 50 million other things to do, but I put in a group pigs flew and donkeys flew and all of those good things because I had someone not only read through everything, but they also read through my terms and conditions line by line and asked me questions about it line by line by line. And you know what? I knew my terms and conditions backwards and forward. I knew why I put those things in my terms and conditions. And I was able to explain it to them and they booked with me. A large amount too. Because they felt confident that not only am I a good business owner, but they also felt confident that I understood my policies. They weren't just there. They understood my reason why my policies were my policies. Because I was able to sit in them 10 toes down, like my friend Keisha says, and say, look, my policies are this way because of this reason, and they were fine with it. So be transparent. Be transparent in your policies and sit with them. And if you're not clear on your policy, then your clients aren't going to be either. So make sure that's why I say your terms and conditions are a living, breathing document, because things may happen that you may not have covered, or you handled it differently and feel as though your new way of handling something is better than what's in your terms. So that's a good time to make an update to your terms. Okay. So what happens now? So I'm pretty sure you guys are like, okay, you gave us all this information, Gigi. You told us, what we can do to help fight chargebacks. You told us how we can make sure you were transparent and our system processes in place. But what happens if I get a chargeback, Gigi? That's where I need help. I don't know what to do. Okay, let's talk about that. If you did everything in your power to make sure that you've documented all of your policies and procedures, got your signatures, documented your conversations with your clients, make sure that you've done everything and things happen, they still do a chargeback. What do you do? So number one, when you get that information from that credit card company, you get that letter, you get that email or what have you, don't panic. It's okay. Chargebacks are a part of doing business, right? If you've done everything that I've said here, you should be able to easily gather all of the documentation, all of the emails, all of the invoices. Make sure you have a way to get your proposal. Like don't just once the trip is closed, once the trip sign up is closed, don't get rid of that proposal. You need to keep it for at least 4 or 5 months after the trip. And if somebody is giving you a place of friction after the vacation, keep it until that friction is taken care of. But don't get rid of it, because there you're going to have the policies and procedures and what they should expect. So yeah, if you whatchamacallit, um gather all of that information and put together, what you're going to use it for is to put together your defense of this chargeback. Okay? So all of that information should include your policies. So collect your policies, get your terms and conditions, all of that good stuff, right? So now you should have a nice stack of paper with all of these information. And now you want to draft a response. That response needs to be clear on the communication you have with the client, and it needs to be date driven, right? So if they utilize, like I use Calendly to schedule all of my consultations. So now you say, okay, so and so scheduled a date to meet with me on this date. During this time period, we talked about their vacation to blah 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 blah. I explained to them X, Y, and Z. And if you have charge fees, they agreed to my fee to plan this vacation for them, right? And then you want to have a receipt. That's your exhibits, right? And then you want to go into, okay, you have a proposal. Do they agree to your proposals? TravelJoy allows us to do that, to have them agree to the proposal. And if you do, say, hey, they agreed to this proposal, right? And then from there, you want to go into, okay, they agreed to this proposal on this date. Now, okay, but they're saying this is fraudulent, right? Or they didn't get what they paid for. In here was the cancellation policy. Take a highlighter, do whatever you need to do to bring that out. This is the cancellation policy. And hopefully you're putting the cancellation policies in the proposals. This is the cancellation policy. They knew about the cancellation policy prior to agreeing to the charge. That is important, because you want to make sure, again, this is where transparency comes into play. You want to make sure that it's very clear what that policy was before they put their money down on the table. And you want to be able to show that, right? So that's why it's clear. It's important for you to highlight what that policy was, and it should be in your proposal, right? And so now, and then you're going to show that they agreed to each and every charge and each and every payment that they made. And then where the point of friction comes in, they wanted to cancel and put the date, right? Or they couldn't, or they had an illness and told me about canceling, put the date, but they didn't have travel insurance. And this was the policy. They agreed to the policy on this date before they put their money down. And they were aware of it, and they signed for it here. That's basically what you want to say. Okay? Tell the story. Follow the timeline. And the documentation should follow that timeline. Now, does that mean that you're going to, that you're going to win every chargeback? No. Some credit cards are very consumer friendly. And it doesn't matter, right? What you say, it doesn't matter what you do. They're just going to be for their consumer. So then what happens now? That does not mean that it ends. You as a business owner have other remedies. Those remedies can be most likely judicial intervention. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that you're taking them to court. But that is a business decision you need to make. And you should have a dispute resolution section in your terms and conditions that deals with disputes. For like a $20,000 trip, in which coming out of your money, yeah, that's something we're going to go to court for. Because I don't have $20,000 sitting in my back pocket because you didn't follow the policies and directions. But for $1,000, $1,500 trip, you got to weigh the cost benefit analysis. Is it going to cost me more to go after that $1,500? Right? Now, there's also the little thing called principal. 9 times out of 10, most court cases are due to principal, right? And if that's the case, then if that's the case, then no amount of money is no cost benefit analysis because it's all about principal. But you should have a dispute resolution piece in your terms and conditions that goes over what happens if there's a dispute that you guys cannot rectify. Do you go to arbitration? Do you go to court? Where? What's the venue? I'm in New York. I'm not going to go to California to file suit. So my terms and conditions say that everything is going to be in New York. And they agree to that. Right? So it's very important that your terms and conditions deal with that type of stuff. Now, here's another thing that people don't recognize with chargebacks. They can be a tool. They can help you, especially dealing with COVID. I had some tour operators where I utilized they had a refundable, policy. Like up to 5 days before travel, you can get a full refund if you cancel. Right? The trip was canceled due to COVID. It was like 60 days before travel. And because they didn't have the money, they came back and said, oh, we'll give you a credit. In that respect, I told my client to do a chargeback. Why? Because they're going against their own policies that my client agreed to at the time that we entered into that agreement. So they help in those situations. So if they're not following their own terms and conditions, a chargeback may be the best way to go. If a credit, like these cruise credits were crazy, 90 days, 120 days, it didn't take you 120 days to take that money off my client's credit card. Why is it taking you that long to refund it, right? So, if it went past what their stated date was, and they like, oh, we're still processing, that may be a place where you would want to do a chargeback. Okay? If the customer doesn't get what they paid for, again, I wouldn't call them a travel agent, but they do a lot of group travel, and they did a yacht trip where it was supposed to be, it feels like another fire festival, right? It's supposed to be all this great food and all these different things, and they wound up getting in a janky yacht with getting fed hot dogs the entire time. Definitely not what they paid for. Definitely didn't meet the description of the trip. That's where you want to do a chargeback, because I'm paying thousands of dollars for a $200 trip. You know what I mean? Like, come on. That's not okay. And also another thing is chargebacks can be partial. So for instance, let's say you only want part of your money back because you utilize most of the services, but not all of the services. You can request that. And you can help your client request that as well. If they're supposed to get some type of service and they only got part of it, but it's an equity type of thing. So that's something that, where chargebacks can be helpful. So don't think that chargebacks are totally a bad thing. They're not. They can help you, advocate, as it could be a tool to advocate for your clients. Especially if the vendor's not doing what they said they're supposed to do. Now, another thing is I want to go back to preventing chargebacks, and then I'm going to take some questions because I'm at the end. So hopefully you got some really great information. Please keep the questions coming because I'm about to take them in a minute. And whatever, make sure you put the Q in front of your question, because that helps me parse out your question from just chat in the chat. So one of the things I do want to go into very, very quickly is what happens if you settle a dispute with a client and then they do a chargeback. Yeah, that happens. And I know you guys are like, oh my God, Gigi, like, what do you mean? This is crazy. Clients do what they want to do sometimes. So if you ever settle an issue with your client and you give them back their money partially or fully, get it in writing before you give them back their money or part of it. And that writing should say something to the thing, something to the nature of, you know, we had an issue. We both decided to settle the issue with XYZ getting this amount of money back. This settles all claims. That is the key terminology. This settled all claims that you have against me and my travel agency. Okay? And that, so if they do a chargeback, right? You would now have that says, we already dealt with this. They got their money back on this date. This, we're done. She shouldn't have, or he shouldn't have any more claims against me, and they're not entitled to this money because that's not our agreement. You know, again, credit card companies do what they want to do, but that is another way for you to protect yourself. And if they decide, and again, not advice because each situation is different. However, generally, if they decide to go against that agreement and do a chargeback, and they win, it's a breach, and you can now go after them for that full amount in court. Okay? Again, each situation is different. Definitely talk with an attorney, but generally that's usually what happens. So that's everything that I have. I want to go into the questions. Please keep the questions coming. This is a huge place of contention. So now's the time to get your questions answered. So, and then I also want to say hello to everyone. So hello, everyone that's here. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. So let's look at Miss Rhonda's question. How strict should we be for having a third-party credit card notarized? Would a TravelJoy invoice be sufficient in some instances? I say get the notarization, but you have to do what's best in your business. You can get a signature page through TravelJoy or whatever you use that captures electronic signatures. That's not a bad thing, but I say the notarization because it adds an extra level of security. Because you can send it to that person and the other person can sign it. With the notarization, that forces that person to be there and to say that it's okay. But again, you have to look at your process in your business. You can't do it that way. I like the extra level of what's it called? I like the extra level of protection. And the thing about it is, if you're using somebody else's credit card, most bank accounts have debit cards. Why not use your own? Or if you don't have one, go and get one of the prepaid ones. There's just really no reason this day and age for people to use other people's credit cards, in my opinion. But if it's like two sisters and they're both on the same itinerary, it's not that big of a deal for me. But if somebody else, is doing it for them, like there's just so many ways to get something with a Visa or MasterCard symbol on it to use as a card. I'm not understanding why we're using other people's credit cards in this day and age unless you're traveling together. But that's just me. So we have a question from Sensible Travel and Vacations. How do you add the IP tracking to your communications using TravelJoy? So TravelJoy has that as part of their software. So I would talk with whoever is your CRM provider and ask them, number one, do they do that? And number two, how to find it. And they should be able to walk you through that. And it's generally with signatures that you do that. I know for myself, I use TravelJoy for signatures, but I also have another, what is it called? Signature software called GrabSign. Adobe has one, all the other ones. And when I get the final with the signatures on it, it gives me a whole report on who signed it, what date, what time, IP address. I know that TravelJoy does something similar, so it's very important that you check with TravelJoy or your CRM and see if they have it and how to access it. Hey, Angela, thank you for joining us today. So your question is, in discussing how chargebacks can be helpful, in the case where a client files a chargeback because the supplier didn't deliver as promised, are we responsible to pay in this case? That depends. It depends on what your terms and conditions are in your whatchamacallit, between your supplier and you. Also, hopefully your client is coming to you with their issues before doing a chargeback, right? And you're hopefully able to deal with your client's issues with the supplier directly. One of the things you really want to do, and the credit cards do ask this question, have you contacted the provider about a credit or with your concerns? Because they really, the chargeback law was meant as a last line of defense in case disputes were unable to be dealt with, in case disputes were unable to be handled between the parties. This is your last line of defense. Unfortunately, it has become where it's the first line of defense. Um, Talk with the supplier, see what you can do. I'm battling with the supplier now due to some really, really bad service that we received when we went to Costa Rica a couple of weeks ago. And I'm deciding whether or not a partial chargeback is the case. So I'm dealing with that with my group leader. But, it's dealing with the supplier and see what the supplier, how they're going to handle it. And make sure you know their terms and conditions on whether or not you're responsible for chargebacks. So another question from Bridie. Did I say that right? Bridie Travel. What if they are processing one payment, but you didn't finish that? So if you can finish that, because I'm not understanding what you're asking, I would love. Oh, never mind. You did finish it. Let me go down here. What if they're processing one payment for 2 or 3 suppliers? One for travel insurance, one for tour operator. Does one signature for all 3 different payments suffice, or do I need 3 signatures? No, you can do, if they're lined out on the invoice, right? Saying, okay, they're giving me authorization to use their credit card for travel insurance, and it says travel insurance this amount on the invoice, and then underneath it says, vacation this amount, and whatever else this amount. All you need is one signature because it's going to have that total amount on that invoice. Okay. Now, if you charge them at 3 different times, then yeah, you want to have that signature for each of the 3 different invoices. But as long as it's laid out on the invoice, you should be fine with one signature. So Adrian has another question. What if they give friction prior to the trip taking place? They've also canceled, but are saying that they didn't sign anything. This is why you need to have the electronic signatures, because they did sign. The law allows, and again, I've had this come up where a judge said, well, we don't care about that, But the law, it is well said at law that electronic signature equates to a regular signature, period. And so they are upheld in court generally. And so, them saying they didn't actually do a wet signature doesn't mean they didn't sign. This is when you come with your documentation, with their electronic signature that says, on this date at this time, you were provided with this. When you gave me your credit card, you had to sign, and here's a disclaimer, that you agree to these rules. And here you go. That's why it's very important to have your policies and processes in place, and you follow them. Because when you don't follow them, it leaves a hole, and this type of stuff can come through. All right, I'm seeing if there's any other questions. Okay, Nikki has a question. All right, I had some clients pay direct to a vendor with their credit card. And you took the credit card over the phone and paid the vendor direct. But it looks like you're missing part 1. So what is your question, Nikki? What is your question there? Come back to me when you get your question, and we'll come back to that. So Ms. Rhonda's asking, is there a time limit to do a chargeback? Generally, it's 60 days after the charge shows up on the statement. However, with travel, sometimes they do a little leeway when you're dealing with you didn't get what you paid for. So think about it. If you book somebody a swim out room and they got the basic room, you wouldn't know that until you actually traveled, right? And so if the resort doesn't make it right, then credit card companies will allow for chargebacks because you didn't get what you paid for. You paid for a swim out. You should have got a swim out. You didn't get a swim out. Now, if they give them a better room and they're not paying that difference, then that's not really a basis for a chargeback. Yeah, there's some inconvenience, but you're getting a better room and it costs more. All right, so Nikki came back with her question. Let's take a look. So part two is they want to cancel the trip, but the refund policy is $600, but they haven't paid that amount. If they choose to charge back, would it be to that vendor for them to handle? The chargeback will go to the vendor because that's who charged it. Now, if the refund policy is $600, that's something, and this is a policy and processes thing, that should have been captured at the front end. If the refund policy is $600, that should have been part of their deposit and made a non-refundable deposit. That's how I would have done it. So then you've captured all the money that you needed because now you're chasing them for the remainder. And you don't want to put yourself in that position. But yes, the vendor would deal with that. But they may come back to you and say, hey, I need your detail about this charge. And a lot of them do that. So again, you need to make sure you have your ducks in a row and was able to get the proper permissions to make that charge in that person's account. Hey there, Chocolate Twist Yoga. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. And then part three to Nikki's question. I'm loving this. I advise them to go their insurance as they all purchase plan. So that's what insurance is for, right? If it's non-refundable and they have a covered reason or they have the cancel for any reason option, then utilize their insurance. That's what it's for. So you're absolutely right in that. All right, I'm trying to see if I missed any questions. All right, I'm not sure if I answered this question or not, so I'm going to do it again. In discussing how chargebacks can be helpful, in a case where a client files a chargeback because the supplier didn't deliver as promised, are we responsible for paying that case? It depends. So it depends on the terms and conditions. Yeah, I did answer this. So it depends on the terms and conditions with the supplier. See, look at that little old age hitting there. You can't remember if you answer the question or not. So Linda asks, on the swim out, let's say they didn't get the swim out but was reimbursed, and they still didn't get what they asked for. Is this chargeback possible? Okay. So there's two ways to look at this question. You're looking at whether or not they have a right to a chargeback, or whether or not they're able to do a chargeback. Let's look like if they're able to do a chargeback first. Yes, they can charge back whatever it is that they want to say with their credit card company. That doesn't mean that it's valid chargeback. And this is where the documentation comes in. If they didn't get to swim out, but they were reimbursed for the difference between whatever room they got and a swim out, right? No, they didn't get what they asked for, but they were compensated for it. So what they got charged at the end, after all of the charges and refunds, they did get what they paid for. This is why it's important to document, because 9 times out of 10, this is happening on the fly while they're in location. And you want to get that note down. You want to send that follow-up email and say, these are the things that happened, and they accepted it. 9 times out of 10, the resort will ask them to sign something. I don't like them signing that crap because they put language in there like you had the ability to talk to an attorney before signing, which is a bunch of hogwash. But yeah, I feel some type of way because I'm going through this. So yes, but yeah, there's no basis there legally for them to do a chargeback. But some people are just mad and they do it anyway. So that's why it's important to have your documentation. All right, Rhonda, do chargebacks affect commission from the supplier? It depends. Okay. A lot of suppliers in their terms and conditions says if there's a chargeback, there's no commission. But think about it. Why wouldn't it affect the commission? If the client's getting their money back, there's no money there to pay your commission. So they can recall that commission because nobody's getting money, right? So that makes perfect sense. If a vendor is not getting the money for that vacation, why should you as a travel agent? Definitely check the terms and conditions of your suppliers. But yeah, I can see how it does. All right. You're welcome, Mona, and I'm glad that you are able to join us today. Hopefully, hopefully, this information was helpful to you. So I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. I think I've handled all of the questions. Uh, but let me know if there's any other questions regarding chargebacks. Like I said, chargebacks is a scary part of the business because depending on how you run your travel business, it can make or break you. And if you have a large trip and people aren't getting their refunds, and a whole lot of people do a chargeback, we've seen this happen with suppliers. They've gone out of business because they don't have the money on hand to repay those monies. So you want to do what you can to protect yourself, protect your business, and to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. So if that does happen, you can say, you can say, they validated this charge. They knew what the cancellation policies were. I went through it and I kept with the policies. There's no basis for a chargeback. You win some, you lose some, but you want to make sure you do what you can so you can win more than you lose. Okay. Hey, India. Well, thank you for joining us. Definitely check out the replay. And that's a good segue. If you came late, or if you missed this, or if you have a friend that you want to look at this, come back to my channel. I keep all of my replays up and running. So you can come and see this, or if you want to, there's something you missed or a concept that you want to get more information on, hit the replay. And if you ask a question in the chat in the replay, I do come back and answer them. So don't be afraid to ask questions as well. Make sure you ask those questions. You may not think of it now. You may think of it later. Ask it in the replay, and I will come back and answer those questions. And then hopefully that can help you because that's what I'm here. Thank you. I want to say your name right, James. I'm glad you don't. Great you don't have any questions, but I'm glad you learned something because that's the whole purpose of this channel, to help learn you and help empower you as a travel agent and a travel advisor so you can run a successful business, so you can sit there from the south of France and run your business and make those coins, okay? So I want to make sure you're protected. I want to make sure you understand the legal parts of running your business. So I'm glad you're here today. Please let people know about my channel. If it helps you, I'm sure it'll help others. And Nikki, you're welcome, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the information that you received. So if there aren't any questions, we're going to head on out because it is a cold February day. I want to start looking at some fun in the sun because it's a cold February day. But again, I really hope that you got some information to help empower you as a travel agency owner. Again, there will be a replay. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm here every first and third Wednesday. My girl, Ashley Morris, she came and said hello. Love her. Albaca Your Bags Travel. She's on her way to a cruise. I'm jealous. But she will be here next month to talk about fees. She's supposed to be here this month. We couldn't make it. That's okay. Human got schedules. But she will be here next month to talk about fees. She is the fees guru, and we're going to talk about the legalities of planning fees to your clients. So that's going to be the third Wednesday in March. Stay tuned. It is going to be amazing. Ashley is awesome if you don't know her. If you don't, you're going to know her by the time we're done. You're very welcome, everyone. Again, hit the replay, hit subscribe. Also, don't forget to get on the Travel Esquire'd email list. That way, you get the TE Tidbits newsletter. Only those people on that list get the newsletter, and it has information that you won't get here on my YouTube channel. So be in the know, get some information, and if there's nothing else, yay, Mona, happy birthday! Oh man, I hope you enjoy. Get on that cruise, have fun. Terry, you're very welcome. I love it here. I love doing this. I will be back on the first week of March, the first Wednesday, which is March 2nd. So please tune in. And if you're on the Travel Esquire'd list, you will receive email reminders as well about when I'm going to come on. So again, happy birthday to the birthday people. I hope this is great. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and let people know about my channel. Help others. Each one teach one. All right. Have a nice one. Talk to you later.